OK, well, death of the high street, that's certainly one that's been around for a while, but it may be one that we actually come back to again. And we are talking a little bit, somewhat about small businesses as we move on now. Now, in April 2003, the then Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, introduced the congestion charge to central London. Here was a politician prepared to levy a new tax barely a year before he stood for re-election. 16 years on, the current mayor is doing much the same thing, introducing the ultra-low emission zone on Monday, which will see vehicles which do not meet strict emission standards charged a daily fee of £12.50 to drive within the current congestion zone. Tom Edwards has the details.
This is the Clean Air Choir, organised by mums who support the new ultra-low emission zone. Pollution is a worry.
We all need to think what impact air pollution is having on our children right now, on all of us. And road transport is the major source of air pollution in London, so we will need to change our lifestyles for the health of everyone.
This thermal camera shows heat, and amongst the fumes are harmful gases and particulates, although most of the pollutants are invisible.
This is what our filters look like. They're white when they go out. And then, when they come back again, having sampled the same air as you would breathe in a day, they look like this.
Here at King's College, they can show you what you breathe in a day.
If air pollution caused people to keel over in the streets with green spots, it would be really obvious the harm it was doing us. But people, when their lives are shortened by air pollution, die of the things that people die of anyway. So these are heart attacks, strokes and asthma.
The dangers of diesel aren't new, but in 2001 the Labour government encouraged them to try and cut carbon. The downside, London now breaches pollution limits for nitrogen dioxide. The solution, it's hoped, is the ultra-low emission zone. So who will have to pay? Well, roughly speaking, if you drive a petrol vehicle over 13 years old, you'll have to pay to enter the congestion charging zone. But what this is really aimed at is diesel vehicles. If you have one that's over 4 years old, you'll have to pay the £12.50 a day, and it runs 24/7. The best way to check is to go on the TfL website. For many businesses like this one in Barking, it means extra costs.
It seems really unfair, and it's not just us, it's across the industry. It's everybody that owns a van or a truck that earns a living with it. We've had a couple of small businesses local to us where their margins are so tight, they operate in central London. They've now had to decide to cease trading because they can't get a retrofit kit and they can't afford to replace their vehicles.
There's no doubt this is one of the most radical anti-pollution measures anywhere in the world, and what it's really about is trying to get drivers to change their behaviour and drive much cleaner vehicles. In the beginning, it's going to affect about 40,000 cars a day, but it's set to expand to a much larger area in 2021. From Monday, the zone will cover the congestion charging zone, but in 2 years' time, it'll cover the whole area inside the north and south circulars.
We've called this Sadiq Khan's poll tax. We really think it could have implications that large. The air quality benefit of expanding the zone over and above the inner London zone really aren't worth the effort they're going to be putting in.
The ULEZ is a first step, but it's a tiny bit of London. It needs to be much, much bigger. It needs to go beyond the north and south circular. No one should be left out of the clean air zone.
Environmentalists want a total diesel ban. Critics say the zone is too draconian. City Hall concedes it can't please everyone.
Well, joining us now is the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
So this is really, really radical. Ken Livingstone had the congestion charge. Boris Johnson is remembered for those bicycles. Is this your kind of big thing? This is what you're going to be remembered for?
Well, listen, whilst the government is in paralysis because of Brexit, Parliament's in gridlock, we're doing a variety of things to try and improve the quality of life for Londoners. This is one of the things we are doing. And why is it so important? Because this killer is invisible, it's hidden. But we do know every year there are thousands of premature deaths caused by the poor quality air. Every day, 4 Londoners are hospitalised because of the toxic air. There are children who go to schools where the air is illegal. They will have stunted lungs, underdeveloped lungs forever. But adults have a whole range of health issues, from asthma to dementia to cancer and heart disease. And the Conservatives have opposed me every step of the way. You've seen others who want me to go even further. I think this is a bold response to the public health emergency we face.
It certainly is bold, but as we heard in the film, there are people, small business owners, some charities who have vehicles which happen, to be polluting, who are saying this has been too quick for them. They're not ready.
Well, I've been lobbying the government for the last 2.5 years to support those small businesses, those charities, those low-income families with a national diesel scrappage scheme. So the Conservatives in London oppose my plans. The Conservatives nationally are unwilling to support me, but I'm going ahead to support small businesses and charities. So I've announced a few months ago a London diesel scrappage scheme targeted towards the very smallest businesses, micro businesses employing less than 10 people, targeted towards charities and targeted towards low-income families. Almost £50 million. With more government support, with any government support, I could do much more. But actually, it's the poorest Londoners who suffer the worst consequences of the air. We know if you live in a deprived ward in London, the air is far worse than living in a less deprived ward.
Indeed, and yet there is also the accusation that this is a tax on the poor. Those are the people who are going to be worst affected. And some of the scrappage schemes you've spoken about, we've looked at the figures, and it's not offering people enough money to do the conversions or to really compensate them for the loss of their vehicles.
Can I just be unapologetic? For me, this is an issue of social justice. It is unacceptable. In the world's greatest city, we have children in the poorest parts of London suffering the worst air, who will have permanently underdeveloped lungs. And it's the poorest families who own the fewest cars who will be helped the most by these policies. And we are investing £50 million towards a diesel scrappage scheme. With government support, we could do far, far more. But I tell you this...
Because you admit that at the moment, that isn't going to help enough people. There are going to be people who are left a lot worse off by this, aren't there?
Look, I accept there are businesses who will find this transition difficult. TfL, we've made sure our buses, all in the ultra-low emission zone area, are now compliant. That's been quite an expensive process. We've reached a deal with the NHS, with the police, with the fire service. We've reached a deal with small businesses and charities and low-income families, but it's been very difficult because of no support whatsoever from central government, and the Conservatives in London opposing it. But it's really important we understand this is a hidden, invisible killer, and I'm not willing to stand by whilst things get worse. And I tell you this, King's College, you saw on this programme, they looked at the work taking place in the 3 years before I became mayor versus what our plans are. They predict, under the previous regime, it would have taken 193 years to make our air lawful. With our plans, it will be lawful within 6 years. I know which I'd choose.
Well, one of the other things we also heard in the film is that, of course, we have the rollout tomorrow, but then this gets bigger, doesn't it? By 2021, we move out to within the North and South Circular, 18 times bigger area. And arguably, in that wider area of London, the pollution is not as bad. And so the trade-off there between health, and actually the cost of this is not as good. We're hearing a figure there of almost £800 million, £780 million to roll this out to the wider area by 2021.
Well, let's be clear, on your programme you also have people wanting me to go even further, even quicker. And so, of course, the Conservatives are against my plans. Some others want me to go even further, even quicker. What we've done with the ultra-low emission zone on Monday is the fastest we can go with the infrastructure we have. The reason why we've chosen this central London area is because we have the infrastructure from the sea charge. But is it fair that in outer London, where there's also schools which are in areas where the areas illegal don't benefit from policies from City Hall, is it fair that you've got a situation where life expectancy in some parts of London is less because of the borough you live in? I think it's not. And so the plan is to roll out the world's first ultra-low emission zone on Monday, tomorrow, and then late 2021, once we've got the infrastructure in place, once we've got the technology in place, to roll it out up to the North and South Circular. Look, I accept the Tories will always oppose my public health plans and will always oppose steps to make our air cleaner. I accept that. I'm willing to take them on. But I'm also being pressurised by mums and dads and carers and other politicians and experts to go even further, even quicker. I must be doing something right if both these people, are criticising me from different angles and stuff.
I mean, I suppose arguably though, people who live in Greater London, there's more need for a car in some of these areas. So it's going to be even more controversial for you, because in central London, the buses, the tube, it's like some of these areas don't have that,
yeah,
do
that's
they?
a really good point.
So what are you going to do about that?
Well, one of the reasons why we were confident starting the ultra-low emission zone tomorrow was because we know there's good alternatives, good public transport. I've frozen TfL fares in the last 2-3 years, but also more people are walking and cycling, really important. We want to see fewer vehicles coming into the ULEZ area, fewer non-compliant vehicles and more compliant vehicles. You're right. At the moment, in outer London, there aren't the alternatives that there should be, which is one of the reasons why I'm taking some time to make sure they're ready. So we're moving some of our buses from central London, where there is an oversupply. Think of Oxford Street, think of Strand, think of London Bridge, move them to outer London. And the idea is, Elizabeth, by 2021, when the ULEZ extends, there'll be other suitable alternatives, but also more low-income families who need a car for very good reasons will either themselves change their car, because 2021 their vehicle will be a lot older, or they'll be given assistance from the scrappage scheme to move away from a polluting vehicle. It's really important. We help low-income families, we help charities, we help businesses, which is why I'll carry on lobbying the government for support.
But I think in these areas, we're only talking about a reduction of about 15%, aren't we, in terms of emissions near main roads. So in terms of the air quality across London, actually, we need to do a lot more, don't we?
I agree. And so as a consequence of our plans, we think by 2020 we'll have reduced the NOx, nitrogen dioxide, by 45%. Only half the bad stuff comes from transport. The other half comes from housing, construction, the River Thames. So one of the things I'm lobbying the government for is additional powers to deal with those issues. Particular matter is actually caused by wood burning stoves.
Illegal wood burning.
Yeah, and so one of the things we're saying is that if the government gave us more powers, we could, for example, make sure that the stuff that people buy is stuff that doesn't lead to toxins in the air. And I'll tell you this, even a 15% improvement, if you're a child with stunted lungs or somebody with asthma, is a massive improvement. 4 Londoners a day hospitalised because of asthma caused by toxic air. That can't be right.
We did hear in the film from one business owner who was talking about the expense of retrofitting his fleet of vehicles. How much do you estimate that is actually going to cost businesses?
So the scrappage scheme we've announced is £48 million. £23 million is targeted towards micro businesses like the one you saw, to support them move away from the most polluting vehicles to cleaner vehicles. If you have a petrol vehicle, 2006 and newer brings you within the ULEZ.
How much is it going to cost?
It depends on the vehicle. So not every vehicle is the same. If you've got a diesel vehicle, it's 2015 onwards. And don't forget, by 2021, that vehicle will be 6 years old. And so the deal we've made with the NHS, with LFB and the police is making sure that when it comes to procurement, they're getting the best vehicles possible. That's why we've given them a lead in time. So those who criticise us for going not fast enough, we've got to give people time to move away from those polluting vehicles. But
can you give us a figure for, say, the kind of cheapest retrofit and the most expensive one? Do you have you must have a ballpark of what businesses are going to have to pay?
So the assistance we're giving black taxis, which is a good example, is we're giving them a contribution of £3,500 to get rid of the most polluting vehicle. £6,000
to scrap it.
To scrap
that vehicle.
That's the carrot to get rid of the bad stuff. The carrot to buy the good stuff is £6,000. And the good news is, if you buy the cleaner stuff, your fuel bills go down, because using electric or hybrid is cheaper than using petrol or diesel.
Because we had a figure, one quote, that retrofitting vehicles would cost for a wagon like the business we saw £20,000.
Oh, for coaches and lorries, different figures. So don't forget, coaches and lorries are different to cars.
That's going to be very difficult for those sorts of businesses, isn't it?
Well, which is why there's been a big leading time. And that's so one of the criticisms there was of me in 2016 was, why can't you go quicker? And I said, no, we've got to give people time to move away. And so in my campaign, I was quite clear, bringing in the ultra-low emission zone in 2019. I've had 3 consultations now. And by the way, 80% of Londoners are in favour of our plans. One of the things I've been lobbying the government for is more assistance towards those businesses who will have to face the adverse consequences. But it's the poorest Londoners who suffer the worst air. Many businesses suffer because of staff being off sick because of poor air. You know, the cost to our economy in London every year is £3.7 billion. Cost nationally £20 billion. That's just the cost to our economy. So imagine if we were having a situation where those businesses weren't suffering by staff being off sick because of toxic air. That's one of the reasons why I think this is a good example of a pro-business policy, but also a policy that's in favour of social justice.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is a big radical thing, and it is happening tomorrow. While we've got you here, we'll just move on and talk a little bit about knife crime, because of course it is something that just dominates in London at the moment. Another 3 stabbings overnight, fortunately, none of them fatal as far as we know at the moment. I know you were at the Knife Summit this week. I mean, how did that go?
Well, I mean, one of the criticisms I've had of the government on a whole host of issues is they've got a tin air. And I've been asking for the last 2 years for the Prime Minister to chair a COBRA meeting. I think knife crime is that serious. And each week she should be banging heads together to get action in relation to this area. Previous Prime Ministers have done this, Tony Blair in 2002. My concern about this week's meeting, although it was helpful because you've got the Prime Minister with Secretaries of State, you know, you've got Ofsted and other really important people there, is what's the follow-through? What happens next? I mean, I'm all in favour of meeting with very important people with power and resources, but the key thing is what happens next week? What happens the week after that? Will we get the reversal of the cuts from our police?
Would you like to see
services?
a weekly meeting?
Absolutely,
Some kind
absolutely. With somebody with the power of Prime Minister chairing those meetings. You know, in 2002, we had a massive increase in street crime in the years before. And what Tony Blair did was he called a weekly meeting, bang heads together, said, why isn't action being taken from the Health Secretary or the Education Secretary? Said to the Chancellor, you've got to give them more money. And the one person missing, by the way, from the meeting this week was the Chancellor. And what we do know is our police service, youth services, schools, mental health, preventative services are being starved of resources.
So that's a concern then, that essentially the money wasn't there?
Well, you know, it's really important that we back up our police who work incredibly hard. They're overstretched, under-resourced. We back up our youth workers who work incredibly hard. Teachers, you speak to anybody in CAMS who deal with adolescents and young people with mental health issues, the weight it takes to receive the assistance you need. You speak to a health worker going into a family where a child is suffering from adverse consequences, not given the support they need. I'm not saying resources by themselves is the solution. All of us have got a responsibility, whether you're a mum, dad, uncle, auntie, big brother, big sister, to say to a young person leaving the home with a knife, don't. You're not going to be more safe, you'll be less safe. If you know somebody carrying the knife, please report it to the police. That makes that young person safe. As all of us has a role to play, but resources is crucial.
People have spoken a lot about it being treated as a public health issue. Is that something that, you know, you think we should be pursuing? And is that, you've been at this Knife Summit, is that... do you have a sense that everybody's on the same page? Is this, the movement of travel here?
Well, some people are, some people aren't. And that's one of the reasons why the Prime Minister's got to lead this. So, for example, we saw 2 weeks ago the Home Secretary saying we want to have a public health approach, supporting me. Yet the Health Secretary said, no, you've got to make sure you target the offenders, not a public health approach. So if the Prime Minister was chairing this every week, she could say to the Health Secretary, you're wrong, we need a public health approach. That means making sure...
And that's your preference?
Yeah, in London we've got a new violence reduction unit where I can have her on the table. I've got no powers to do so, by the way. This is all done in relation to convening power, the NHS, Ofsted, schools, charities, civic society, the police, many others working together to tackle this issue. But I tell you this, it'll be made much easier with full government support. And whether it's tackling air quality or tackling knife crime, we need the government to be engaged rather than in permanent paralysis because of Brexit. OK,
Sadiq Khan, thank you very much. Right, back to my other guests. So, low emissions, ultra-low emissions. Bob, what do you think?
I understand the logic that the Mayor's saying, utterly and completely. But I seem to recall that we were told to buy diesel cars. This is the real problem, you know, and some of the poorest people in society have got these flipping diesel cars, and you know, the scrappage scheme, it must be applied to them, and particularly when we're expanding the zone out to within sort of 1.5 miles of my constituency boundary. Suddenly all these people with diesel cars...
the government haven't come on board to help with that, have they?
Let's be honest, they should do, and they will try, but we don't have all the resources in the world to do it. And, you know, the Mayor is quite right. We should support this. What's that?
I'm holding... Sorry, it's slightly distracting, isn't it? Because I'm holding a piece of sort of scientific kit. But this is actually very interesting because, Karen, you brought this with you. Do you want to tell us what it is?
I did.
Yeah.
And, you know, let me start off by saying I think that the low emission zone is brilliant and brave. And I think we have a public health emergency in terms of air quality. And my constituency of North Westminster is one of the worst affected. We have terrible air quality. And this is an air quality monitor that I have been carrying around for the last week on working with London Air and Hubbub, who are a charity, environmental charity. So this has been tracking the air quality on filters, and it'll go back tomorrow.
What have you found?
They'll be monitoring, because I've been tracking where I've been going. almost everywhere we go, and
Including in here.
they will
Yes.
and they will look at.
Well, we'll be able to find out what the air quality is like inside
BBC
BBC
I hope.
Broadcasting
That's what I hope.
House.
Yeah,
That's what we've heard.
absolutely.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to both of you for joining us this week. And of course, thank you to Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, for joining us as well.